Who's first, boys?
Man, I think I can sing out loud enough as well anyway. Dee's got the microphone, but thanks for making light of the fact that we're the guys that are too soft to sing karaoke by themselves. You know, like we need to do a duet every time. But no, we get into it.
This is definitely not my forte, so I invited Ben to help me. He's
Hello, everybody.
pretty good at this. So.
Coming up from Margaret River. Hopefully everyone's been down there, checked it out. Beautiful spot. I do recommend it.
All right, let's get stuck in. So we've got. I'll just introduce ourselves. My name's Deejay. This is Ben, and as we've already introduced ourselves already, I suppose. Is this working?
Is this thing on?
So, who are we? Who is Beerfarm? We're a hospitality and events company. We're a national beer brand. We're a production brewery, one of the sort of larger craft breweries in WA. Active community participant, and I guess more generally an employer and someone about our people that work for us and that we call colleagues. Oh. Sorry, I've lost a slide, but never mind.
It's supposed to be one of the kids' ones sucked in there.
It's been tampered with. So I guess the story today, the two goals we're framing our story in is life on the land and also responsible consumption and production. And the kind of framework there is our sustainability story and what we've tried to do and the ideals we've tried to have from the word go and carry them through to where we are today, but sort of going head on with some rapid growth and the challenges that sort of come with that, and some I guess real impacts and how that's sort of stalled for us a little bit. So I'd love to be up here saying that we're going great and we're the absolute best at this, and we're not quite. We're still working our way through. We're quite a young business, and I think we're certainly trying our best to work through that. So Benny's a founder, so he's sort of here to tell the start of the story.
Indeed. Look at these lovely pics. I love it. I moved over in 2014 originally. I reckon I can sing loud enough. You guys can hear it? Yes? Okay, we're on. That means we don't have to do the old switchity switch. But you can see from humble beginnings, look at this. This is a lovely old roundhouse of the dairy. That's where all the cattle used to come into the big hay shed there, which is now our lovely venue. And that roundhouse is actually our brewery nowadays, but I come from a construction background, bit of a hospo background as well. And I came over to do the construction, get it off its feet, and we had some experience with a metropolitan brewery over in Sydney, which led to the interesting challenges that Deej had mentioned, like not having town water, not having sewer, dramatic differences that proved a lot more challenging than first assumed. Just having a big spring-fed dam on the site, not that easy for beer production, sadly. But it's a bit of a, back to the future sort of thing that, the growth of craft beer in this country, it was, over 100 years ago, there would have been over 400 breweries in this country. Every region, every area, without being able to ship your product all over the country, you really needed to produce it very locally. It's a fresh is best product. You drink it like milk, and you couldn't refrigerate it back then, obviously, so it was just get it out really quickly to the locale. And, over 100 years, that was down to about 5 in the 1980s and 90s. Now up to over 650. So, the craft, the acceptance and enjoyment of a craft local product and parochialism and people enjoying that, that's what's really rebirthed it into the massive powerhouse that you see today, including our number. But right off the bat, we knew that we could focus on using our spent grain for cattle production on the site. And a big part of that was using that spent grain to feed the cattle on the site and then using those cattle in our food offering as much as we could. It's a great thing that we do to this day with some challenges that will also be mentioned.
We'll get to.
But also utilising that water on the site, as I mentioned, and then utilising the wastewater, which is a massive part of it. But it wasn't as easy as it could have been, the water situation, was it, Deej?
No, we went through quite a lot of filters, and we'll sort of get to more of the wastewater stuff as well. But off to a really great start. So everything's a lot easier when you're smaller, right? So early days, there was a lot less staff, with a lot less beer production. So we had large-scale solar array, actually covering a great deal of our production energy. Our water usage was elite for beer is a really water-intensive product. So you see up there, 3.5 litres of water to 1 litre of beer sounds like a lot. It's actually really good. Industry average is up to around high 4s. So it was something that we were really proud of and really able to do really well. And something that we'll get to in a little bit has become a bit more of a challenge as we've grown. Some other things that we did, kitchen garden, using some stuff in the kitchen. Started with a food truck and then it sort of gradually progressed.
Look at that beautiful garden.
Actually not looking quite as good as that at the moment, to be fair. Did a lot of composting on site, a lot of the hop trub and the yeast waste, along with some of the kitchen waste, utilising that on the site. And the wastewater, as Benny mentioned, so, fertigating our waste. So basically wastewater, fertilisation and wastewater to combine, fertigation. So you're putting the
fertilisation and irrigation combined.
Irrigation, sorry. You're putting the wastewater, you're basically fertilising through the wastewater. So using the nutrients in the water for the pasture of the land and for the cows to feed on, along with the spent grain. And part of that is the chemical usage. Brewing is it's a lot of cleaning, so a lot less fun than people realise. Lot less, not quite as sexy as it sort of is made out to be.
It isn't. Good God.
Oh, mate.
Not again.
You got out of it, didn't you?
Yeah.
No, our colleagues still, they love it. They love the journey behind it and the science, but it is a lot of cleaning. And part of that was to be quite innovative with that chemical usage and to try and adapt that to the site and what the soil and the site could actually take. And we're off to a really great start with that. It was working really well, and with the production volume that we were doing, was handling it very well. Some other stuff, considered materials around biodegradable plastic wrap and these sorts of things, that was a lot more easy to do. So the sort of real challenges ahead were more around as we scaled. Indeed,
with this lovely growth came some mighty fine times, and we'll focus on the good times for this sort of moments. We got this cracking number. Actually, originally we had a beer called the IPL. It was one of the first India Pale lagers sort of out in the larger game. Did really well at the AIBAs, the largest beer awards in the whole world. Won a trophy for best international lager. Kind of put us on the map. Oh, yeah, we're on. Thank you. Well, it was. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was a cracker. It kind of made us a bit of a household name in WA. That Royal Haze, that's our most popular drop nowadays, actually. But it set us on a great trajectory, and we started to grow very quickly. We had some interesting initiatives regarding a bit of the war on waste. We did a few products called Save the Harvest. Does everyone remember the old needle in the strawberries saga from a few years ago? Yeah, we managed to get our hands on about 1 tonne of those strawberries that had already been shipped to Western Australia for distribution. We juiced that up and we made a big strawberry sour. Usually when you use fruit in beers, it goes towards sour beers. And that was a really popular drop. Well, just before that, we actually managed to get over about 1.5 tonnes of pineapples from Paradise Farms in Queensland. SPC had changed their canning schedule. They were sitting on this huge amount of fruit that had turned. And you actually want semi-turned fruit that's got a higher sugar content when you're juicing and when you're doing this sort of stuff. So we made a pineapple sour. It had like a $50 note on the label. It was excellent, but it was another big hit. Another big hit. Yeah, the pineapple. Yeah, we got it. I'm glad. But that was a big hit, and it put us on the map sustainability-wise. Reusing that sort of stuff, and then becoming a bit of a household name just kind of drove us, in a great sort of trajectory. And that comes with, it's a capital-hungry investment, but also producing everything on site. You need to increase your fermentation considerably. So that's just a lot more tanks. We increased we had to upgrade our canning line, our centrifuge, which is a pretty advanced type of filtration, and our venue and kitchen. So originally our brewery was actually the old Vonu brewery from Fiji. They got bought by Coca-Cola. Their equipment became obsolete. It was a kind of perfect size for us at the time, and it was a great price. We jumped on it. So we still need to improve a lot of our stuff and upgrade it. So it came with a bit of CapEx and with some exciting improvements. All of which, contribute to the sustainability as well. A lot less waste.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of the main point here is that as we've grown, we've got a 30-plus-year-old brew house that we're running out of. It's a little bit like kind of, whipping an 80-year-old man to do more manual labour. It's
Great analogy.
it's, well, our head of production, Josh, likes to use that one. I always remember it. And so I guess the thing there is a lot of investment into the business. Where it's quite a bootstrap business, so it's sort of money in, you know, and investment in as we're doing that. We don't have sort of deep pockets to be able to do it all, so we have to be careful and pick and choose as we're gone. So those things were much needed, but they have sort of stalled some of our sustainability initiatives. So those aspects that I talked about that started really well in probably the last sort of year and a half, thereabouts, we've sort of run into some hurdles. So our water usage ratio has gotten away from us. We're up over 4 now, so something that we're trying to peg back and get a handle on. But basically, as you know, as you're doing more volume, you've got more people, more brewers, it becomes harder to manage, particularly on our site. Our wastewater fertigation, so we're on a finite piece of land. You know, you actually need to, you can't just put the water out there and just, you know, let it sort of go hell for leather. The land's got to be able to take the nutrients that you're sort of putting in, and you know the amount of cattle that you can have on the land, and the herd of Angus that we have. You know, we've got to be careful about how much of a herd we actually carry as well. So essentially, with that becomes more investment into infrastructure to treat the water before you fertigate, and that's something we're going through now. And obviously limits to composting. If anyone's ever been to the Beerfarm on a January day or on a Saturday.
Who has been to the Beerfarm?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh,
question.
wow!
Most of you.
Really
Those of you
good.
who haven't,
that
get down
was
there.
pretty surprising.
But yeah, it's a pretty big venue on a Saturday or on a January, you know, summer's day. It's pretty hard to sort of do those composting initiatives at scale, and unfortunately, the cattle at the moment we're unable to rotate through our kitchen. Staffing issues, hospitality issues. It's pretty well known with COVID, and we've got a bit of a pause, and the beasts are actually not cycling through the kitchen at the moment. Still going to a sort of good place. Sorry to any vegetarians. Yeah, look, and it's sort of, it hasn't all been kind of challenged. The centrifuge and the canning line have actually cut down a lot on our liquid waste and some of the byproducts. We've managed to eliminate our plastic from our packaging for the most part, and with our cluster packs, and got some other cool stuff going on around container deposit scheme money going to an Establish of the Future fund, which is decided by our staff as to where that goes. So there's a lot of sort of challenges ahead. What we're sort of doing about it is trying to utilise technology as much as possible. So we don't want to just go headfirst into offsetting carbon, I guess, blindly. And that's not to say that anyone's doing that wrong. It's more so, you know, we're still running a business, and we don't sort of necessarily have complete time to dedicate to such projects. So it sort of, you know, becomes a side hustle almost. And so we really want to use technology to assist us and guide us here. So with our wastewater, we're currently looking at live soil monitoring, so we can really know what the nutrient loadings are on our land. Live energy usage monitoring, so looking at sort of, you know, what our equipment is actually using. Our boilers which is sort of for energy in the brewery is a bit of an old thing as well. It reminds me of something out of like a 1920s.
Don't say the old man thing again.
1920s train station or something.
Oh,
I
yeah.
It's,
Steam train.
Steam train.
It is like a steam train.
It looks like that. So we really want to know what that's actually using, and live carbon management software as well. So we're sort of in the process of doing that. Other thing as well, expanding our solar array. We're definitely using more energy. It's definitely not covering nearly as much as we'd like to. Our water input, we've got a lot of sheds and a lot of rainwater capture facility. The water that is on site, there's a lot of water on site, but brewing is something probably Ben will speak about a lot better than I as a more technical brewing sense, but you need good quality water with brewing. So we unfortunately weren't able to get quite the filters that could handle it for the water that was on site. So wanted to capture the rainwater and be able to do that. Running through a B Corp application, which has commenced last year, and we've got another brewery on the cards as well. So very ambitious business. We've got something looking to happen on the Central Coast. So we're a national brand, as I mentioned. So we sell a lot on the East Coast. It's growing. WA is certainly our heartland, but logistical legs over the Nullarbor and over east are a big part. You know, there's a lot of carbon and a lot of, a lot to that. So we want to be able to sort of go back to the future, as Benny mentioned earlier, and sort of, you know, have that sort of more local aspect to there. So
Absolutely.
that's sort of what we're doing about the challenges that we have at the moment.
Those what we're doing. I think the energy one, so we sit at about 75%. We've got an array of close to 200 panels on our roofs, and it covers quite a bit. You know, let's say we turn on that centrifuge filter, our refrigeration's working hardcore, the venue's full, and we're using absolutely everything, like the canning line's on, for instance. We cannot be self-sufficient. But with a couple of new sheds we've put on, and the infrastructure we put in initially for the solar, we can be almost 100% efficient. Well, that will be tested when we put the panels on there, but we're aiming to get there. These are our little goals, established for the future. That's the motto of the business, by the way, guys. And so CO2, it's an interesting one. The brewing process produces a lot of CO2, and you use a lot to carbonate the beer after the fermentation process is done. So if you can actually capture that CO2 and clean it and then reuse it, that can be a great renewable thing to do instead of having to buy it in, basically. It's just some incredibly exy equipment that, you know, that has only been, you know, very accessible to far bigger companies until this point. It's getting a bit easier. And water self-sufficiency. So that, like I was saying earlier, with the metropolitan background coming to a rural site, and this, you know, we've got a big spring-fed dam, we test the water, this is good, this is potable. Once we started using it, it turns out it had a lot of tannins in there. And we went through, you know, we did ultrafiltration, RO, we started with some really basic sort of carbon and particulate filters, all of which the tannins just absolutely ate it up. It was an impossibility in the end, sadly, but we, you know, now we're going to go onto the rainwater thing, which just means a lot of storage, but that's fine, very achievable for us. We'd like to get there in the very near future. Hospitality-wise, I've always thought the Beerfarm's an awesome place to work. It's a great venue. I'm sure you guys, the amount of hands I saw go up before you, a lot of you have experienced it, and hopefully you've enjoyed the hospitality. You can really tell when you go to a joint that people enjoy working at. They've got a smile on their dial and they're happy to be there. It's, I think, you know, that's something that we want to carry through and even work harder on. Actually got our staff party coming up next week. That's going to be fun. And that's, you know, that's an employer of choice thing for me. And the product, direct relationships to growers. You know, Deej touched on the hops before. You might have seen a picture of our hop farm that we actually grew that down in Carradale, a little bit colder climate to where we're based in Metric Cup. Had a red hot go. It had about 1,000 plants in the ground, and you know, it was pretty hard to get a very good yield compared to it's a cold climate crop, and it was never really that cold there to get a good frost over the winter time, guaranteed to produce a big crop, and it ended up being a bit of a battle, but very worth it and very much aligned with our values. Worth a solid crack.
Very much a labour of love, the whole farm.
It was a labour of love. A lot of labour of love, but it was fun. And that's something that we'd like to do again. We'd like to have some very direct relationships with hop growers in this country, also with the grain, very monopolised industries here, sadly, and it's nice to get some real farmer, shake hand, genuine relationships going there. The sustainable on-site growing of some inputs, so we do a cider as well. We'd love to set up a decent apple orchard, the strawberry, pineapple stuff that I mentioned earlier as well. If we could grow some interesting crops for those sour beers, stuff like that, I think that'd be awesome. We do a lovely native series beer as well. You might have seen it out there with some fantastic, you know, indigenous, endemic sort of flora. Also, you know, fruits and stuff like that. We've got a Boab nut one coming up next. Ooh, keep it down. All right, it's a secret one for you
Hopefully.
guys. But that's a lot of the focus of what we want to do. I mean, a big part of that for Venue 2.0 is growing a big amount of vegetable production on site as well. So we want to fertigate, irrigation, fertilisation. We want to fertigate a big crop from our wastewater, producing a lot of the vegetables for the kitchen with our new site, be able to do that at the site in Metric Cup as well, and, you know, show it off. I think the consumer really loves that nowadays. You know, like you come down to the venue, you're grabbing a beer, you can see the veggie crop out there. You know, you might even see someone out there picking up a few things, you know, like it's just, man, that for me is just a lovely experience, you know. When places do it genuinely, I love it. When it's a bit of a token thing, you're like, okie dokie, mate, come on, you got like a couple of herbs there, but like, you know, when you go out and you got like, oh, look at those big rows, very impressive. I can see him standing up over here, we're running along here. Okay, we're on. But you know what I mean, I really dig it. And that's what we're working towards, taking care of the land and enjoying it and having a bloody good time while we're at it, because it's the booze industry in the end, man, that's what it's about. Right? Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, guys. Cheers.